The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You lock the kingdom of heaven before men. You do not enter yourselves, nor do you allow entrance to those trying to enter. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You traverse sea and land to make one convert, and when that happens, you make him a child of Gehenna twice as much as yourselves. Woe to you, blind guides, who say, 'If one swears by the temple, it means nothing, but if one swears by the gold of the temple, one is obligated.' Blind fools, which is greater, the gold or the temple that made the gold sacred? And you say, 'If one swears by the altar, it means nothing, but if one swears by the gift on the altar, one is obligated.' You blind ones, which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? One who swears by the altar swears by it and all that is upon it, and one who swears by the temple swears by it and by him who dwells in it. One who swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and by him who is seated on it." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to make too much sense, at least in the brief moments that we have of the technical challenge of unraveling the gold and the temple and the offering and the altar and the like. I think it's more important to say to see this condemnation of the scribes and Pharisees, in line with what has come before in Jesus' own preaching and teaching. And if we do, then we see that Jesus's, his opponents of the day, the people who are proposing the alternate agenda, even though I suppose they would say Jesus is offering the alternate agenda, that they're off track at the heart of it. And at the heart of it, as we've seen Jesus reiterate throughout the Gospels, is love of God and love of neighbor as self. And the neighbor, that kind of line of demarcation, is pushed further and further out when we consider the fact that God is generous love, and his love is meant to extend to all. And Israel is supposed to embody God's love then for the nations, for the world. Yeah, so, and if we look at it like that, then we see that their agenda, the agenda of Jesus' opponents, is part of a disfiguring agenda. Worship is off. Yeah. So, and once worship is off, then the rest of the project is off. And what we see here is, again, some expression of the centrality of when you start looking at gifts and gold, you might have some sense that money has become a little too central in the operation of things. And in fact, this is Jesus's real forceful condemnation of the Pharisees as lovers of money. We see it kind of littered throughout the scriptures. So we can see then that they're getting things backwards in the practical expression of religiosity, but it's because they have the wrong thing at the center. They have the wrong center. So the center is not the true and living God. If it were, then they wouldn't get these things backwards. But when they go out, they've made these things of primary importance, and by indoctrinating people into things that they have considered primarily important, they've put them on the wrong course. They've put them on the course for destruction, because they then prevent them from having a true heart of worship. They prevent them, the people that they go out and convert, make all their efforts to quote unquote bring them in. By bringing them into their own system, they have prevented them from ever encountering this sense of right worship, of having the true and living God at the center of their hearts and lives. And I will say, I don't know if it makes sense for me to say, like, this is an issue for us today. I think sometimes it is an issue for us in the quote-unquote evangelizing efforts of the church, is that if we get things in the wrong order, then we won't be bringing people into right worship either. And if we're focused sometimes on the wrong ways to measure the successes of the evangelizing church, which in my mind what I hear is usually people in the pew and money in the plate. If we get the measures wrong, the things that we measure wrong, then we're likely going to prevent people from experiencing and entering into the life of right worship, of having God at the very center of our hearts and lives. This is why the church exists, is to bring people into that new life, lived totally for God, and lived then also in His service. We become expressions of His merciful love for the world. So I don't know if there are challenges here. I think sometimes there are, and this is just really a call to get first things first, and to see then that of course what we do here is the high point, the pinnacle, the source, and the summit of Christian life. That Jesus' sacrifice, his offering to the Father of perfect praise, that Good Friday offering of his entire life, of his life whole and entire to God. This is the action that we want to be caught up into, so that we can give God the praise of our whole heart and life, no matter how much we would otherwise, lack in terms of devotion, in terms of adoration and worship. Here we can be caught up into Jesus's praise, and then our praise is made perfect. We're habituated to right worship here. I think it's significant then also that we celebrate the memorial of the feast of the Queenship of Mary today, because this is also what we're celebrating. Yeah, when we celebrate her conformity to Jesus, the King, and we get to speak of Mary then as the Queen of heaven and earth, and our Queen too, we are saying something remarkable about our ability to participate in the devotion of Jesus for his Father. Because Mary is caught up in it in such a way that she does not experience the corruption of death. Yeah, we celebrate the Queenship of Mary as the octave day of the Assumption. Right? And we're saying very powerful things as it relates to our ability to have a heart of true devotion for God as a result of Jesus' saving work. Right? So we're caught up into that today. Mary, again, we have these images, and we're right to say Mary's the Queen, following on from the fact that we're going to claim Jesus as King. But when we think that Jesus' kingship is inaugurated on that throne, the throne of the cross, then we ought to have a better understanding of what his kingship and Mary's queenship are all about. It's all about, again, what we see throughout the scriptures and what Jesus is trying to exhort even his opponents to today, which is love. Yeah, love of God with our whole heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love of our neighbor as ourselves. Receiving God's merciful love and becoming an expression of his merciful love for the world. That's what it's about. And today we have every aid that we need in order to live it. Every aid, including the beautiful example of the Blessed Virgin Mary, who goes before us in faith, and by whose assumption we see that we too are destined for the victory, to participate, and even now we are meant to participate in Jesus' victory over all the powers, over death and every corrupting force that the world knows. We can overcome them today in the power of Christ's kingship, and brought into that reality by the love of our mother and our Queen.